All right. So we're live again. Yeah, so like always, I'll give it a couple of minutes or two here just to give people a chance to get in. I think I'm going to start trying to edit this part out uh, once the once everything's finished. Ooh, there we go. We got a follower. That's good. Or got a viewer. That's good. Um, yeah, so like I said, I don't want to get too much into what's happening. Just checking, making sure everyone's calm. I tried to wear my dogs out before we started this. Hey, Nita, how's it going? Um, oh, by the way, sorry about yesterday. Sorry about yesterday. I had a massive headache yesterday. Actually had a migraine the day before. What was that? Was that Sunday? I think that was Sunday. I don't remember what day that was. No, it was Monday. It was Monday. Yeah, I had a massive migraine Monday, and it bled over into yesterday. So I still had quite a bit of a headache. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. Hopefully everything goes good. Um, so yeah, we're gonna. I do. I'm feeling better. I'm feeling better now. Yes. Boy, but it is hot here. Whew, it's already hot. We're getting into some warm time of the year. I mean, it's only August, and it's quite warm. Whew, man, I'm already starting to sweat here. I am not made for the heat. Yeah, 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 yeah. Me with a migraine. Uh, anyways, so looks like we're getting some people in, so that's good. So yeah, I'm gonna try to maybe take a little bit of a pause here. Like I said, I'm gonna try to start cutting things a little bit better so people don't have to watch the intro parts when I post the actual live videos. So I'm gonna take just a second. All right. So, so, um, so basically, we're going to talk about HTML5. Yeah, last time we talked about basics of HTML. I called it HTML at the beginning because we talked about really early days of HTML. And um, basically, kind of showed things that we used to have to do. I used some older school HTML techniques, things like tables embedded in tables and that kind of stuff to try to showcase how we used to have to do things. Um, Basically, though, we're today we're going to talk about a lot of the new elements that are out there and why they're out there. Um, Basically, what did HTML5 do? What did it bring to the table? Uh, what can we? Why should we use these certain things? That type of stuff. That's the goal, at least the goal of what we're talking about today. So yeah, I guess uh, we kind of went through the past last time. We went through the past last time. I don't think we need to really review that too much, but we did have. Even before HTML5, we did have some things get brought into it. The div element is one that we still see in use a lot. I'd say I'm one of the ones who I would accuse myself of using a div when there we go, shorter doc type. There we go. One of the reasons. Yeah, very good, Bob. All right. And so why did we do that? So what are some of the things that we should be using? How should we be doing this now that HTML5 is there? Is there a reason to use it? The answer is yes, of course. If there wasn't, why would we do it? So I think we'll go ahead and we'll kind of jump right in to screen sharing. So I'm going to go ahead and hide the chat overlay. I'll still keep it up though. Let me see. Oops. It disappeared on me. There we go. Now I can see it, but no one else can. But yeah, that way you guys can see the whole screen. So we will start with my little presentation part here. And so here we are. Let's just make sure everything still looks good. Yep, it's looking good. All right. So, um, There's nothing here that looks all of that unique, all of that interesting. Actually, it looks kind of crappy. That's kind of the idea, though. The idea is to showcase, you know, the different elements, so you can see what where the parts of the different elements are and things like that. I do have a little bit of styling that I've applied over here. Um, Really, I don't want anyone to pay too much attention to it. I just wanted this to look at least a little bit nice and have some niceness about it, to where you can kind of see the idea behind what each of these sections is supposed to do. Now, honestly, we could have all of these in divs and they would work just the same. It would pretty much do the same stuff that we're doing here. The difference is, though, in HTML5, the reason for a lot of these comes down to accessibility. It also has things to do with SEO and things like that. So when a web crawler searches your site, if it finds a part that's in a header, then obviously it's thinking that that's the header for the site. If you see something that's a nav, then it realizes this is supposed to be nav menu items here. If you've got something inside of a main, then it realizes this is the main section of the site, the main data that's actually supposed to be here. It's like I'm gonna have to go stop animals. Just a second. All right, we're back. Yes, yes, bark, bark, bark. Like I said, that's the problem with problem or the fun part about live, depending on how you look at it, I guess. So yeah, I got the main culprit here. But yes, main basically then tells the anything processing that this should be the main text that's on the site. There's another tag as well, which I was having a conversation just before here about article. Article actually is used to determine, like, when you're in a blog site or something like that, or when you're in a news site, and if you want to mark something that this is the main content of this particular page, it's an article, it's something that's supposed to be read as an article, you can put it inside of an article tag. The concept is the same. Honestly, there really is no styling differences of these items, and I'll show that here in just a minute. Because anything you see here is basically done by the styling over here in the CSS. So all of this is what's causing it to look this way. This doesn't look this way by default. Matter of fact, I was thinking of, even just to kind of prove my point, just do pretty much that. Yeah, pretty much to take this out like that and look at it. It's all pretty basic. So the site itself really doesn't have anything special about it. There is no special stylings involved in putting these tags in here. About the only thing even really doing a job whatsoever is the paragraph tag here, and that's not an HTML5 tag. That's a tag that's been there for a very long time. Its purpose is to actually put space before and after, and so for each, I generated I think 5 paragraphs here just of lorem ipsum text, just to give us a decent amount of text here, so we can take a look at it. And as you can see, that's about the only thing that still has any kind of styling applied to it. So these things really don't give us anything in the way of styling, but what they do is they give us in the way of intention. And so that's the whole thing. The whole point of this is we're trying to show intention, that this is what this is supposed to be. This is supposed to be the header. So when a web crawler, or even when a when like a screen reader comes through, it can understand, oh, this is supposed to be a header, so this is the heading of the site. So the screen reader will probably tell something to the effect of, site header, and then possibly list the site header. Obviously, you wouldn't probably just have text in here. You'd probably have logos. You could have other stuff in the header. And that's also where things like role comes into play, but I'm not going down that path today. I mean, we could spend an eternity talking about roles, talking about accessibility, talking about all kinds of stuff. But today is really kind of an intro to the content elements of HTML5. I'm going to go ahead, just because you've seen this, I'll come back to this, but what I will do as well is I will jump over to another screen. And this is the one I meant to actually start on today. I was going to show what we were going to talk about. This is the content section. This right here, you guys can't see this. This is Mozilla. This is MDM. If you go to developer.mozilla.org and you're looking for HTML elements, and these aren't specifically HTML5 elements. Actually, these here, probably most of these are, except for the H1 tags. Almost all of these in here are new HTML5 elements, except for these right here. I think that's it. Yeah. This is the article one I was talking about here. Basically, as you can see, it says it's basically used for news sites, syndications, blog posts, things like that. Anything where you've got, a particular type of information. So you're telling the reader, hey, this is like the main content of what you're supposed to do. That's also the purpose of main too. The purpose of main is it represents the dominant content of the body of a document. So basically, you could use either. Technically, I could have used article, I guess, if I wanted to, but since it's not an article, since that's more like a landing page of my site there, I wouldn't really use article. I would use that like it says in a blog entry or something like that. That's where I would use something like article. Another one I don't have in here, and I really couldn't see a use for, was aside. But aside has, actually, I'll go ahead and I'll click on it and kind of show an example of what aside does. So aside, this over here, I believe, is supposed to be the part that is the aside. So it's talking over here, over here, but you have this little itty bitty side section that's kind of a side note almost. And that's really sort of the concept of aside, is a secondary note to something that's kind of put along the side as kind of a side note to something that's being talked about. You've seen it in articles, I'm sure. I don't know if I've seen as much in articles anymore, but I used to see it in articles a lot, where you'd be reading along in an article and have a little section in the paragraph somewhere where it'd say this and this and this, and it would give you a little bit further explanation, a little bit more in-depth explanation as to what's being talked about here. And that's really kind of the concept of what that's supposed to be. It's supposed to be a little side section that's supposed to be used to define what's actually being talked about. But none of these here have, very few of these have any really individual styling. And I'm going to actually, before I jump back to the main site we were looking at there just a minute ago, I am going to share one more thing. And that is going to be, I have DevTools open. And I have DevTools open on the site that we were looking at. So here is the DevTools. Now let's see if we've got it. There it is. Okay, so if you look, here's the body section of the entire site we were looking at. Here's header. As you can see, if you look, if you've ever gone into Chrome DevTools, if you haven't, first of all, you should start doing this to learn about things and figure out how things work. But this right here, if you look at any particular tag, you'll notice that there's usually something in the style somewhere called user agent style sheet. And that's basically the style sheet that's applied by the browser you're looking at, in this case, Chrome. So as you can see, the header element, the basic default styling for the header element is just display block, and then this little Unicode setting here, which honestly, don't ask me, I can't tell you what it is. I do know what Unicode is, but I can't really tell you what that setting does. But basically, display block doesn't really give us much. It's just the way that the element is displayed in the layout of the page. Block element means it just if you put another one, it basically goes underneath it. So that's pretty much it. So yeah, div elements, for example, are block elements. So you put something in a div, you create another div underneath it. It'll just do a return, and the next part will go right below it. And that's what, if you look at all of these things right here. So here's header. Here's nav. Once again, same settings, display block. These have individual settings, but that's because these are OLLI. These are list element settings. So they actually do have some actual agent style sheet stuff that actually does get applied. Hence why when I took out the CSS, you saw the little numbers beside the nav items, because that's the default display type of those items. But as you can see, nav itself does not have anything. It has nothing. It has just the block element. Main, the same thing, block element. But like I said, paragraph does. Paragraph is a block element, but it also has margins before and above and below and all of that, and that's what gives us the spacing in there. But beside and footer, here's footer, the last one we used, once again, display block. Nothing really too concrete about it. So these things aren't providing any kind of visual change to us. We still have to style them like we do divs. We still have to have the same kind of concepts about all the other stuff that we normally do. But basically, you have used article, unless the page needs to be in a reader mode instead of a standard page. It's a good point. Oh, here, I'm going to put this. Let's see here. I've seen a side used for web apps with vertical nav bars. Here, there's. I'm going to go and do a couple here. Here's a good post about the aside. So that's a very good point. You've seen a side used for web apps with vertical nav bars. Very good. Yeah, and that's something I was thinking as well, because I was almost wondering, do I want to do a side nav and then use the aside command? I'm like, there's so many nowadays that it's more common to see the top level menu. And so, but I agree with you that was one of the things I was thinking as well when I was building this, is should I use a side for the left nav bar on the left? It could have been done that way, and that's a very good point. And then Bob had a comment. He said he wouldn't have used article. I wouldn't have used article either, unless the page needs to be sent to a reader mode instead of a standard page. Good point. Yeah, exactly. It's just, a lot, like I said, a lot of this comes down to how SEO is going to work when it goes to search your page, what it's going to do. You're kind of trying to tell it what to do. Okay, well, this is supposed to be this. This is supposed to be this. This is supposed to be this. It's kind of helping that. It is helping in screen readers and things of that nature. Like I said, there's roles and there's other stuff like that play into it. We will go ahead now and we will go back to this, back to sharing this. So yeah, it's just, how do you want to do it? You can pretty much make it work any way you want to. Like I said, these all could have been divs here, and we could have just put the same amount of styling, and they would have come out looking exactly the same. But because of HTML5, because of these new ways of doing things, there's a lot of new tags. We should be probably using these tags to try and tell web screen readers, and also why can't I think of the name of it? Web crawlers. There's the word I'm looking for. Web crawlers. What they're looking at, and maybe giving them some assistance in how to process our page. It's going to help in facilitating those types of things, and hopefully give you a better overall results when your page goes live, that type of stuff. So really, like I said, I'm just as guilty as most everyone else. This is probably the first time I've used most of these tags. I don't think I've ever used a header tag before. I know I've never used a nav tag before. I might have used main once or twice, but I don't think I've used it very often. This is pretty much the first time I've gone through and done this as well. So like I said, the idea, the concept behind it is to try is first of all, these are there to help in different assistive technologies in making your website more help your accessibility rating. Sometimes your accessibility rating will improve, and that can also improve certain things in searchability and possibly even in results in search engines and all that kind of stuff. We really do need to try and be assistive to people who maybe can't see, who maybe have a hard time seeing, and need to use things like screen readers. The less that they have to sit there and listen to of all this of trying to jump through all these things. I've heard how I've never had to see how these things work, but I've heard how these things work, and it does sound like it'd be quite annoying if you don't set things up correctly, for them to have to sit there and quite literally listen to every single tab, and it's going into the different elements and trying to figure out what the elements are, and just reading through the elements. They have to try to figure out what your site is trying to say to them. So yeah, it's probably not a bad idea to try and be as helpful as possible in those situations. Um, yeah. So basically, that's kind of where this was going today, going down that path of teaching new things. Now there are some really cool things with HTML5. I did want to talk about that as well, kind of as an intro to HTML5. Um, these are very simplistic things. Like I said, they're meant for layout. They're meant for assisting us in telling web crawlers how we're laying out our site, what sections belong to what, assistive technologies. And but even then, if you look through if you go through the MDN site, you're going to find out that even with these new tags, sometimes you still have to put a roll around them for assistive technologies. So so you need to read up on that. You can't just say just using this is going to make my site more accessible, but you need to also go through and make sure you read about accessibility and you're up to date on it, and try to keep your accessibility score on your site as good as it can be. Um, Basically, yeah, that's kind of where it's heading to now. One thing that I do think is worth mentioning here about HTML5, and I think is very interesting, and was probably in my opinion, at least this is my opinion, of course, in my opinion, was one of the most interesting additions to HTML5 was the Canvas component. Now, I don't know how many of you have seen, how many follow me on X, but you might have seen some posts, especially more recently, about Canvas component and 3JS and some interactive web 3D stuff that I'm starting to do work on and all that kind of stuff. That I think is probably one of the most interesting additions to HTML5 is the ability to actually draw things on web pages. And of course, that's what web browsers do anyways. You give it HTML and it draws it on the screen for you. It's actually drawing it on the screen for you. But that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is this is a tag that sits there on the page, and if you put it full page on your web page, you can quite literally create 3D games to a point on a web page. But you can definitely create 3D experiences. You can create interactive 3D experiences on a web page. Now, when I remember when this first came out, this is about 10 or so years ago when HTML5 first came out. Probably wrong. It probably was a little bit longer than that, actually. Um, and so, but when it first came out and I heard and I saw that, I thought that was amazing. Now, unfortunately, I think at the time it wasn't really as developed as it is now. Nowadays, you're starting to get it more and more. I remember someone sent me a link to a website that I went to on my phone, and I was able to. It was a completely 3D 3D experience, and I could actually just sit there on my phone and I could scroll up and down, and it would move me through this. It would move me through the 3D world, and things are getting in that path. I think things are getting a lot more interesting because things have finally started to catch up um, to what's going on in that regard. I'd love to say that I would eventually talk about it in this HTML5 series. Probably not. Main reason is that right there is, I mean, that could take books and books and books of topics. There's people who dedicated entire web series to it. I've even spoken of some of these people. One of them is named Bruno Simon. That's his name, Bruno Simon, who I signed up for his 3JS slash Blender course. So there are people out there who have done very good jobs at talking about the HTML5 canvas. That thing, but like I said, that thing is a beast unto itself. You could do even from something very simple to just if you want to hand draw things on a screen to fully interactive 3D experiences. So that's probably one thing I won't talk about here. But probably the next thing I probably would talk about would be I'll probably go through some of the other items here. It wouldn't be bad if you guys want to go through that. I mean, SVGs is that's another really good thing that came out from HTML5. I'm not sure how many of you have ever had any dealings with SVGs before or not, but SVGs are a very interesting thing that came out with HTML5. The ability to almost hand draw uh, graphic elements, and not just hand draw graphic elements, but actually be able to interact with them. So a lot of the charting libraries you see nowadays are done with SVGs. I'm trying to think the one we use at work, because I've mentioned this before. I work at a company named Myosh. That's my full-time client, and we do software where basically it allows people to do dynamic form creation and data acceptance, data manipulation, reporting on it, all that kind of stuff. It's really quite advanced stuff that we do. One of the reporting tools that we do, they use SVGs, and I'm trying to remember, it's React something or another. I can't remember the name of it. There's a bunch of them out there though, and nowadays a lot of the charting and reporting libraries that you see that are being created are being done so with SVGs, because like I said, not only can you create tags that have the ability to draw just about anything you want to on the screen, but you can actually interact with it. So if you have, previously what would happen is a lot of the reporting libraries that were out there, they would hand draw images. So it would actually create an image behind the scene, generate that image, and then send the image to the front, and then it was there. And that was about all you could do, really. You couldn't really do much unless maybe you somehow put an HTML image map around it or something like that. Maybe then you could do something, but really all you could do is maybe make it clickable. So if you clicked it, the little button would come up and light a click it, little pointer would. But that's about as much as you'd probably get out of the old school stuff. But nowadays, if you hover over it, Remix is one of the things we use. That's right. We do use Remix React, but I'm thinking of a charting library. It's similar. I'd have to look it up, and I don't want to spend time going through a bunch of code to try to remember the name of the library that's used there. But Remix is I think it's the icon library we finally settled on, mainly because it's I don't know how many of you use different icon libraries. I've used a number of them myself. I've gone through a bunch of them. One of them, of course, everyone always talks about is oh good gosh, of course I'm going to just completely blank it. Yeah, Font Awesome. Everyone talks about Font Awesome. The one thing I've found with Font Awesome, and if you're going to do a lot of the more advanced things that Font Awesome does, then Font Awesome is great for it. But the problem with it is if you're just using it for just an icon library and that's about it. Let's see. You said I've been using here. I'm gonna put this one up here. So I've been using Lucite icons, and they're great. I haven't seen those yet, but we were initially using Font Awesome. The problem I came up with is these were being, of course, included in our build, and we have a separate component library from the actual main website. And Font Awesome includes a mandatory 75 kilobytes of CSS, most of that being around doing animations inside of your icons. And if you're going to use that, then okay, that's great. But if you're not, you're including an extra 75 kilobytes of CSS for absolutely nothing, and that's what ended up happening with us. We weren't really doing animations with our icons. We didn't need those kind of animation features like that. We weren't using them. So for us, it came down to, we were saying, man, we got that's an awful weighty bunch of icons in there. I mean, the icons themselves aren't weighty, but all this other stuff is coming along for the ride, and there's nothing we can do about it. So we went with a much more pared down one, and I think that's where Remix came into play. So we use Remix to do that as well. The one I do for Bsoft components is the hero icons. That's from the guys at Tailwind. So if you like Tailwind, there's the hero icons. It is a little bit limited currently. They don't have all the ones that you'll find in some of the bigger icon libraries. But so far, I haven't been limited by it. But I'm not doing a huge amount of icons in my components. I'm doing just really basic ones. So they seem to have all the basic ones. And they're just SVGs at that point. They're just SVGs. You just they get wrapped into your component, and that's all there is to it. Anyways, yeah, SVGs are another really interesting thing that I think came along for the ride in HTML5. A lot of really good reporting and things like that comes into play. SVGs have other interesting capabilities. A couple jobs ago, my first job here in Australia, I had to do an application where we had a car that was splayed out. So this is for a company that basically was an insurance company, and they had auto repairers that were doing um, insurance claims, and they needed to be able to say what parts of the car were damaged. So the car was seen from the top, but like then the doors were turned out and things were turned to where you could actually just end up selecting them. And so the easiest way to do that is to turn that into an SVG, and then for each of the sections, I could kind of slice off different sections of that, and I could detect whether or not that section was clicked. So if a particular section was clicked, I could know, oh, the left door was clicked, the right door was clicked, the hood was clicked, the here it's not called the trunk, it's called the bonnet, or no, the boot. Sorry, the bonnet's the front. The bonnet's the front, or is it the hood? I can't remember. I had to learn all the names because they had to use the names from over here. I do know the boot. I do know the boot is the trunk. I know that much. That's terrible. I've forgotten most of that. Anyways, but yeah, each one that was clicked, I had to then put in on the form. Okay, well, this was clicked, this was clicked, and of course they re-clicked it and I had to take it out. So it allows you some interesting things, some interactivity that you wouldn't get from just normal images, which is something that's really interesting with SVGs. Also, the fact SVG stands for scalable vector graphics. So as your site expands and collapses, sometimes with SVGs they will scale better, and so once again with normal websites, if you a lot of times you would have an image that was pegged at a very particular size, 100 by 300, for example. And so as things start to get smaller, the image would get smaller, and smaller didn't really have as much problem as bigger did. So as it expanded, if it expanded beyond there, then it got very pixelated and it didn't look very good. With SVGs, they handle those types of situations better and they look a little bit better. So you don't have as many problems with SVGs as you would with normal images. So that's another really interesting thing about SVGs. I mean, that right there could be probably a topic into itself, is just, how do SVGs work? What do SVGs do? What can you do with them? I'm actually digging in and using SVGs right now. So if I end up getting, an SVG, some SVG stuff working here very shortly, maybe that will be the next topic. We'll have to wait and see. I'm going to go through all of the different element references and try to determine what the next topic is going to be. But hopefully at least you kind of understand why these things came into HTML5. Why they came in, what we should be using, what we should be doing. We need to try to start getting away from just putting divs on everything. I need to start getting away from that. It's a bad habit I've kept for years and years and years, because like I said, the div came out in HTML 4.5, so it came out around that time somewhere. I don't know the exact spec number it came out on, but it came out somewhere in that range, 4.4, 4.5, somewhere around there. And so I think a lot of us have been using that. I know in most of our site that we have right now, we use divs everywhere. There's nowhere we use a main or an article or an aside or a nav. We might use nav. I could be wrong. We might use nav somewhere, but we're not doing the whole layout like we should. And it like I said, it doesn't really affect in the way of it doesn't look right, or it doesn't do something right. You can still make it look just fine. And if your site, kind of like with us, with our site is behind a lock and key. We are very customer specific. We're not too concerned, at least from the application that we work on, of it being of worrying about SEO and things like that. We are worried about the main site. Now, I haven't seen the actual main site of our. It is very nice. I have seen it, but I haven't actually seen the code of it. Maybe I should say it that way. I haven't seen the code of the main site, and so who knows how that is done, if that's done right. That probably should be where you would want to focus. You'd want to focus, if anything, it's going to be live and going to be public, and it's going to be something you want SEO to search it, and something that you want different accessibility readers to be able to find it. Those are the ones. Those are the times when you really have to worry about that. But it's good to have. So the main site is built with Webflow. So you'd hazard a guess that it's a div soup. I love that, a div soup. That's awesome. That's one of the funniest things. That's a good one. Div soup. Yeah, probably. Yeah, honestly, like I said, those things have been there in HTML5, and I seriously wonder how many sites actually use them to this day. like I said, is it really harming anything from the actual development side? No. Should we be thinking about it? Yeah, maybe we should. Um, you know, but who knows? But this is the way. This is what HTML5 introduced for us. This is the things that is trying to bring. It's trying to bring some kind of normalcy to all the different pieces of web applications and how they should work, and giving us sort of a structure to develop them in and all that kind of stuff. Um, lots lots to learn. Like I said, I kind of rambled on about SVGs there. Like I said, if I can get to a point where I can get a really good SVG example out here this weekend, that might be the next one. But if not, I'll definitely be going through the element reference and maybe try to pick out the next one, because there'll definitely be a couple sequels to this one, because like I said, this is such a HTML in general, and especially HTML5, is such a huge topic. Even as simple as it is, I mean, all we're really talking about is yeah, here's a really good point. Yeah, the great thing about HTML5 is that most of the accessibility work is done for you. You just got to take advantage of the semantic elements. Exactly right. Exactly right. 100% true there. Is that's kind of the point, It's the point of using these, and that's what I was talking about earlier. The point of using these is that you're going to get the accessibility out of the box, because the accessibility readers, the screen readers, know this is the header, this is the nav, this is the footer, this is the main site, this is an aside element here, so this is just a little side, this. Oh well, here, since it's a nav element over here, okay, well, we know that we're reading navigation items, so it can kind of help in telling people what they're reading. Oh, navigation, blah blah blah, and then you can make a choice as to what navigation item you want to choose. So yes, exactly right. That's really the advantage of HTML5. But like I said, there were some really cool things that were brought in. It wasn't just elements, these elements just for the sake of screen readers, or for the sake of accessibility and for the sake of SEO. But there were some really good pieces that came along for the ride. Some really good technologies and some really interesting ones. And like I said, the especially the Canvas component is really now kind of becoming something that I feel is really starting to come into its own. It was there from the very beginning, and I do remember seeing people doing stuff with it, but now there's frameworks around it. Now there's websites out there that I've seen that have done some really amazing things. So it's one of those things that you just you just kind of wait to see what's going to happen, and hopefully things get even better than they are in that regard. And I think they will. I think you'll just see things getting better and better about that. I think there's a lot of interesting aspects there. Anyways, I'm rambling on again, so I'm going to go ahead and try to call it a day. But I thank everyone who did stay on to the end. So I appreciate the comments from everyone, and hope you guys have a good rest of your day. And yeah, we'll do this again next. Well, for me, it's next Wednesday. Some of you, it's still Tuesday. So whatever day it is now, we'll do it again a week from now. And I'll try to as soon as I figure out the topic that I'm going to do, if it's SVGs or if it's something else, I'll definitely try to spit it out there as soon as possible to get you guys get some thoughts on it, and to let you know where the next one's